the only thing faster than this supersonic golf cart are the closing times at thehomeloanexpert.com. Mortgage rates on the twos, and we have a 21-day closing guarantee. Apply online today at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Huddle Up with Howard. Howard Richards is here. And Howard, we have a lot to cover today because we not only have college football to talk about, but the NFL is here. It starts tonight. And I've got a few things to ask you. What are you looking for? What do you expect this year in 2021 after we've gone through COVID and things seem to be getting back to normal with regard to the NFL?
Hey, Mike, it's great to be on again, of course, with you. What I expect from the NFL this year is more of the same. It really is the most exciting product that we have in all of professional sports. In spite of some of the changes that have taken place over the league over the years with, the concerns about player safety, collective bargaining. There's going to be a game added this year. We're moving to a 17-game schedule. They eliminated the preseason game. But by and large, I think it's going to be the same old NFL. Even those people that hadn't been watching for a couple of years back, I think they're going to be back. And it's the best product that's out there. I think it's going to be exciting. You got young quarterbacks in this league that are making a difference. And I think, tonight's opener with the Cowboys and defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers should be as exciting as well.
You think it's going to be a better product. My issue with the NFL, if you're going to expand the season, shouldn't you expand the rosters? Because this is a brutal sport. This sport takes no prisoners. And we're going to have some guys go down. And if you don't have ample substitutes or people who can kind of spell people along the way, I think the game will really be in danger as far as not having the best players out there.
Either you expand the active rosters or you expand the practice squads, because essentially that's where your bloodline is. That's where your depth is coming from. It used to be straight off the waiver wires, but if you've got guys, a number of developing players on your practice squad, then I think you're set. It's essentially like the minor leagues for football. Right. Whether they address that or not, I think they should. If you and I were making that decision, that's probably the first place that I would look to make that change.
I just think that this season's too long and too grueling to think you can have the same 53 guys and you're going to be okay. All right, give me some teams that we need to start paying attention to. Give me 4 teams. Give me 2 from the NFC, 2 from the AFC. They maybe haven't come with the fanfare that we normally are accustomed to, but teams that maybe you think have made a step in the right direction where they need to be respected and considered more.
Well, you're really going to make me think about this now. I got to tell you, the Buffalo Bills in the AFC. I think Josh Allen is a guy that, in some respects, for me, he came out of nowhere. I didn't think he would be as good as he was. I think the first year he struggled a little bit. He's a big guy, he goes about 6'6", 6'7", strong arm, but he's been pretty accurate. He's been great for Buffalo. They developed him properly. And I think he's ready to take the next step with Diggs at the receiver. Their team has been improved. And he's a guy that I just think has got, way outside than he was probably getting credit for. You look at the, I think the Colts also. What are they going to do with a healthy Carson Wentz? I think they're ready to make that next step. The Cleveland Browns, one more team in the AFC, I think is probably the team that's got maybe the most talent. But can they put it all together this year? From the AFC, it might be a little bit harder.
Oh yeah.
But the 49ers, what are they going to do with their new rookie quarterback? Although we do believe that Jimmy Garoppolo is probably going to be the starter at the outset. They've been strong on defense. I think Mike Shanahan is poised to, take this team maybe deep into the playoffs. I think the other team that I'm looking at is where going to be in 2021. Russell Wilson, I think, is still one of the best quarterbacks in this league. They've got some other pieces that need to be taken care of, but they're probably always going to be in that mix when it comes to playoff time.
It's interesting you mentioned some teams, and the reason why the NFC is harder to predict, because those three AFC teams you mentioned have maybe the three best offensive lines in the game right now. And that's why I think they made significant improvement. On the other side, as I mentioned, in the NFC, you can kind of go back and forth, but I don't know if they've got enough toughness and enough talent up front on either side of the ball for them to be clear-cut as far as legitimate contenders, which makes the NFC more of a crapshoot than I think the AFC. And granted, I think the AFC's got better players, better teams more or less, because I think that they have made a greater investment in what they do at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I agree. And case in point with the Cleveland Browns, the young offensive line talent that they have assembled there is going to be key. This is one of the teams that I looked at was, the right tackle, Jack Conklin, left tackle, the rookie last year, Jedrick Wills, who struggled a little bit in the run game, but he's going to improve. He's very explosive, out of his first round pick out of Alabama. His pass protection was great, especially at the left tackle position. Right guard White Teller is solid. Joel Bitonio is a really good young guard also. But they may have among the best centers in the league at J.C. Treader. And that's what I think, with what they can do up front with their youth, and you've got a quarterback who may also be ready to take the next step, who's explosive, he's exciting.
Every day, Ameren, Illinois works to deliver reliable energy throughout the state.
And that's Baker Mayfield. Is he ready to take the next step in the AFC and challenge, the leaders at the top of the conference? So those are the most exciting things that I'm going to be looking for this weekend. Going back to what you mentioned about the schedule being a little too long, I would agree with you. And I agree. I think that they should have taken, instead of just one preseason game away, take away two preseason games. I think two preseason games is enough for the long season that we experience every year with the NFL.
I think I would have also considered throwing in another bye week also somewhere along the way. But you know what? They didn't call me this time, so maybe they will next time. Everybody stand by. We're coming back after this.
Every day, Ameren, Illinois works to deliver reliable energy throughout the state to on-the-go families, in-the-know grandparents, and busy students. But did you know we also have ways to manage your energy? Paperless billing, outage notifications, pick a due date, auto pay, and so much more. So no matter who you are or how you use your energy, there's an option that's right for you. Learn more at amerenillinois.com/options.
Welcome back, everybody. We continue with Huddle Up with Howard. Howard Richards is with us. And Howard, let's talk a little bit about the games this weekend. Give me three games that you're going to try and pull up a chair and take in.
Dolphins, Patriots. Where would the Patriots be this year with obviously the ouster of Cam Newton and their brand new starting quarterback out of Alabama, their first round pick, Mac Jones? It was a big step by the Patriots, but I don't think that there's anyone who probably knows the quarterback situation better than Bill Belichick and the quarterback's coach, Josh McDaniel. They are, they've done it the best over the last 20 years, 6 or 7 NFL championships. And I don't think that we should really question, that decision, to move on to the young quarterback. Obviously, they've got a lot of faith in him, and he's probably the most NFL-ready college quarterback that's making the jump to the NFL. The Dolphins, I think, is a team that are they ready? What can they do? Or are they ready to challenge the top of the AFC? They have assembled a lot of young talent, and I think it's time for them to put up and shut up.
I'm going to go back to New England. Okay, you're starting a rookie quarterback, but normally if you do that, don't you have a bona fide running game, or don't you have some top flight receivers that can get the job done and maybe takes pressure off of him? Now, forgive me, but I haven't noticed any of those guys walking through the doors in Foxborough. And I was really surprised when they moved Sony Michel, who was a pretty good back for them. So I'm trying to figure out how they're going to protect this young man and help and give him a chance to truly develop. But then again, as you mentioned, Bill Belichick kind of knows the game and probably knows what he's going to have to do. So with that said, do you simplify things offensively to make sure that this guy doesn't get killed, or there's some guys in the closet that we just didn't know about?
I think probably a little bit of both. I can see them being somewhat simple at the outset. And the more that Mac Jones sees, whether it's game one or down the road, the more that he's going to be able to handle. Now, he came from an offensive system that has prepared plays for the NFL. So I don't think that's going to be any different. Steve Sarkisian, of course, last year was the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. He's now moved on to be the head coach of the University of Texas. But I mean, just looking at what Jones was able to do last season at Alabama, he was impressive, just really impressive. And I just think that just looking at all the things that you're just looking at from a bad NFL team, their perspective offensively, I think he fits in well with what New England's going to try to do. But the concern is, those pieces around them, they don't have to be explosive receivers. The Sony Michel move was a little bit of a surprise too, but again, simply because of Belichick. Yeah. Love him or hate him, I'm not betting against any move that he makes.
You touched on the Dolphins, a team that I think people are anxious to see. But what to say about the Dolphins and maybe the talk about them moving Tua? When the whole situation with the Houston quarterback came up, everybody thought that would be a good match. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, didn't they just draft this guy? Didn't they move up in the draft to get a crack at him? And now all of a sudden he's in part of a discussion for trade talk. What did he do to warrant that discussion so early? And also, how do you think it made him feel, especially with a team, as you mentioned, has a lot of talent going into this season?
Twofold. It could have been that the Tua situation, that with Tua there, if you looked at how he played quarterback position, I didn't see a lot of fire in him, if you will. I mean, extremely talented. Guy can make all the throws, and was a good leader. Next level, though, did he have the same sort of fire? Did he have the same sort of talent that they need to move them forward? And that's not the case. It's not automatically the case with a lot of guys in that position. You remember years ago when Brian Bosworth came out of the University of Oklahoma and was drafted by the Seahawks. The one thing I said about Bosworth, that I think this guy has maxed out at the collegiate level. And sure enough, he never really advanced beyond where he was in college. Is Tua that same type of player? Don't know yet, but we're going to find out, maybe as early as this year, especially given the fact that they were looking to move him. So a lot of crazy stories that are going to play out, probably within the next 4 to 6 weeks. We'll have some different storylines. And, that you mentioned that whole situation with the Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson, what a mess. And I don't know what's going to happen with them. And it's not surprising that Houston was trying to move him. But secondly, knowing what he's facing, are you a team that's going to take that on? I just don't know. I don't know. It's the most intriguing storyline to me in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the biggest issue here is these are all civil allegations. There's been no criminal charges filed. And I think because you can indict or sue a ham sandwich, in civil court and make all sorts of accusations. That's a little different than if it were a criminal situation where there were actually charges filed by the authorities. We haven't seen it yet. And I think for him being in limbo like this is you're right. It has created a real mess and a dilemma that I'm not sure they can get out from under in the very near future. Tell you what, why don't we take one more break? We'll come back. We'll talk some college football, including Mizzou. And Howard's going to tell everybody why it takes over almost 4.5 hours to play football on Saturday.
St. Louis Acura is excited to announce the opening of our newly remodeled service lounge. We sell pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models and take pride in servicing what we sell. We offer free pickup and delivery service and a complimentary car wash and vacuum with every service. We also have a full-service reconditioning shop on site that can repair dents, bumpers, and wheels. As the nation's only 29-time Acura Precision Team winner for customer satisfaction, we work every day to make St. Louis Acura better than ever for you.
All right, Howard Richards, as we huddle up with you, let's talk a little Mizzou football. Give me your thoughts on what you saw Saturday. I kind of thought it was, some people would say it was rather bland. I thought it was just an opportunity for Missouri to really get into a comfort level of being able to run plays and execute and do things that they couldn't do after playing against each other for the last few months and not in the environment that you would have on a Saturday where you're actually having legitimate contact. You're actually running plays and you're doing things and you want to get a look. So give me your thoughts on where you sat.
I think the biggest concern of this team was probably how they played defensively. I thought they were going to be a little bit better up front right off the bat. Now, it's not necessarily a surprise because you're adjusting to a new defensive scheme. Even though you say they under Barry Odom and Ryan Walters, they played a 4-2-5. They did, but the responsibilities have changed. The defensive line is no longer sitting back, reading and reacting. They're playing a more attacking, pressure type of defense, gap control. So that requires that the defensive linemen need to use their hands better to shed blockers. In the running game, they've got to find the football faster. They did not do a good job of that up front. I saw too many guys getting occupied too long by blockers. You saw a lot of gas plays right up the middle, and that should never happen. That's really the strength of that defensive line, or it was expected to be, where the most stout players are and where the most depth was on the roster. So they've got to improve against Kentucky, which is a team that loves to run the football, especially with the talented Rodriguez and the big offensive line. So I expect to see a lot of that by Kentucky up front based on what they saw against Central Michigan. Now, on the back end, what I saw initially, I was a little disappointed because they had to play more man defense because they weren't getting pressure up front. That said, they kind of settled in the second half. I saw the Missouri defensive backs, especially the corners, playing more aggressively in defending passes through. I can't recall a time where they actually knocked down more passes. So they were playing aggressively, and I think that's a good sign. Now, if they can tighten up in some of those situations, especially defending against those slant routes on first and second, cheating over, taking away the inside routes, those easy routes that receivers are taking, trying to redirect them, make it harder for the quarterback to be more accurate. If they can do that, then they're going to be far better on defense if they clean up those areas. Everything else, I think, will take care of itself. Offensively, this team is probably as good as it wants to be. The receivers are improved. We talk about what Mookie Cooper can or cannot do. The guy's been hurt, so he's still getting into the flow of the offense. No surprise there with Tyler Beatty, what he was able to do. I've always felt that if you give him the ball and you give him a few creases up front, if he can find that daylight, he's very explosive. So he's leading the SEC in rushing after 1 week. Again, it's 1 week, but we have seen what he's capable of doing. And I think Connor Bazelak, once he gets a chance to see what defenses at the SEC level look like, his upside is still very good too. I thought he saw the field a little bit better in some cases. I saw him look off receivers, which he didn't do as well last year. There were a couple times where he just missed on a few throws. But I think, the deep ball is going to be a big part of this offense. The more they do it, the more they're going to have opportunities to connect it. And that'll open up everything underneath. Should help the short to intermediate passing game, and it should also help the running game.
I want to go back to a couple of things you pointed out. Other than the Dallas flex defense, can you name more than three that ever had a success with a read and react defense up front? I've always found that to be you're just playing with fire, and it's defense. You have to make the first move. You have to be aggressive, and that's something that I'm glad to see this change. But also on the offensive side, I thought Missouri, and Eli Drinkwitz as well as anyone, I didn't think they were trying to show too much, understanding that they've got a conference game in Kentucky, and that's a team that's given them problems over the last few years, and another road game with Boston College. I thought they kind of just ran a script of plays. They wanted to just see how they looked because I think they felt like they didn't have to over game plan for Central Michigan. I didn't think they really cared about the score because the things they can clean up are going to be easily accomplished down the road. What did you think about the offense? I know some people were like, what are they doing? I just thought they wanted to just kind of get a look at some things and not tip their hand too much of what's going to come up this week. So I ask you this question. Playbook depth. You've been in an offense where you've had plays, and it just seems like there's so many more options as far as play selection is concerned. Am I warm on this with regard to what we see now compared to what you were part of?
You're red hot. And what we both know of Eli is that the playbook is an infinite playbook.
Mm-hmm.
It's like more of like a virtual playbook. I don't think there is not a cover to cover thing as a lot of teams have out there. And I say that because he is sort of a master of evaluating the next opponent and sort of redesigning the whole game plan as to what that defense, what their skill set, strengths, and weaknesses are. You may have a whole set of plays that you haven't seen in 2 or 3 years from him, but it's all talent based and it's all based on the abilities on both sides. But I would not put it past him his ability to scheme and put players in the best situation to be successful. He's kind of like a little mad scientist in there. And to me, that's the beauty of why he's the head coach in this league at the stage that he is, being only 38 years old, because he can look at things more analytically and be able to design and attack to his strengths and the other team's weaknesses. Yeah, what does it all boil down to? Execution by the players. That's always the case, no matter what plays are thrown up there. But if you got that combination of what his play designs are, and his players are going out there and playing hard, they're going to be a potent offense, especially now when you get players that are more familiar, players that are coming off some injuries. Time has been limited, and obviously, the more that they're doing it week to week, you see that marked improvement week to week. And I think that's going to be the strength that the Missouri Tigers bring to this conference.
2 things before we get out of here. Kentucky, that starts on Saturday. As I mentioned, they've given Missouri some problems in the past, and it appears that they're going to be even better this year, especially at quarterback. They've changed some things with their offensive coordinator. What do you see in Kentucky, and what will Missouri have to do other than eliminate, obviously, the simple mistakes that they picked up from Saturday?
Well, you got to account for this new quarterback, Levis. It's something, his weapon that Missouri hasn't really seen out of this team in a while. The quarterback position really hasn't been the greatest threat, other than a couple of years ago when the converted wide receiver came in and played quarterback and ran for over 100 yards and threw for a couple hundred and just like completely destroyed them. But I think defensively, and again, going back to what Kentucky did last week against Louisiana Monroe, if you're just looking at the scores of the Kentucky game and the Missouri game, and you think, Missouri game was really close, Kentucky game was a blowout. If you put Central Michigan against Louisiana Monroe, 9 times out of 10, they're going to destroy them, right? Louisiana Monroe was not a good football team. That said, I think this game will be a much closer matchup. And people, of course, Missouri knows Kentucky's had their number 5 out of the last 6 years. Type of game Missouri played against Kentucky last year, irrespective of the quarterback, is the type of game that they can play again this year. They've got virtually the same team. And they've been in the system a little bit longer. Well, Kentucky's improved too. Bringing in Cohen as the offensive coordinator from the Rams has given them a different dimension. So it'll be a big challenge for Steve Wilkes and his defense to make that big jump, correct and clean up all the stuff that we saw that Central Michigan was able to do against Missouri, put it all together and put together a pretty good game plan against the Wildcats. Central Michigan, look for them to really make some noise in the MAC. I think it was a much better team than people are giving them credit for. Really, really good playmakers on both sides of the ball. And Jim McElwain is a pretty good coach, even though he wasn't there on Saturday because he had appendicitis.
Hey, final question for you. I know we as fans are enamored with rankings. Isn't it a little early to be ranking teams? Because nobody other than Alabama really knows what they have. And I think that when you put that title of being ranked, it can work for you, but I think it really works against you, especially if you don't account for yourself as well as people expect you to. If you're a top 10 team or anywhere within the 25, if you don't go out and blow somebody out, people always start to wonder. So why even have rankings in the first 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks, much like what we see with the College Bowl playoff situation?
I think it generates interest for the fans, gives them something to talk about. And to your point, why was LSU ranked number 16?
Exactly.
What they came off of last year, a horrible season. They finished at 5-5. And then they go out and UCLA plays very solidly against them. And LSU just looks like a shadow of the team that they were from when they won the national championship 2 seasons ago. So that's a great reason right there. I mean, usually Vegas kind of gets it right and the coaches polls are somewhat right about it. That one really surprised me because I thought that there were a number of other teams. If LSU's in the top 25, there are probably 5 other teams that probably could have been or should have been in the top 25 based on what we saw over the weekend. So I'm with you. I don't think the rankings should really come out until probably mid-season. Gives the players less to focus on. Hey, we're a ranked team. It's baloney. I just focus on what you can control. Go to class, go to practice, try to get better. Then we'll see by mid-season where teams should and should not be ranked.
He's Howard Richards. I'm Mike Claiborne. This is another edition of Huddle Up with Howard. Howard, have fun in Lexington if there is such a thing. And I look forward to talking to you next Thursday when we have another edition of Huddle Up with Howard.
Fantastic. All I care about is getting the W in Lexington.
There you go. He's Howard Richards. I'm Mike Claiborne. We thank you for watching, and we appreciate our sponsors as well. Ameren, Illinois, the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly, and, of course, Munganaz, Alton Toyota. Have a great day, everyone.